encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network.
My name is Brad McNutt, and this is Why We Love Jesus. This is a weekly podcast where we sit down and we think for just a few minutes about why we love Jesus so very much. In Matthew chapter 16, we have the record of Jesus entering into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, and he asks his disciples, "Who do people say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And of course, they give him the answers that they have heard as they have mingled and gone throughout the crowds, of course, with Jesus and teaching. And some say he's John the Baptist or Jeremiah or Elijah or one of the prophets. There are multiple reasons why they would come to those conclusions, of course. John the Baptist and his ministry and Jesus' ministry, they look very similar in many ways, right? Of course, John the Baptist was preparing the way for Jesus, or Elijah, the Jewish conception of Elijah, that he would come, the Old Testament prophet speaking of that, which, of course, in context, you see it even a chapter later, not even a few chapters, but a chapter later in Matthew chapter 17, where Elijah is spelled out to be John the Baptist. And so you can see how they kind of have these notions. They have an idea of Jesus, but it's not full yet. It's not complete. And so then Jesus turns the question around to the disciples and says, "Okay, but who do you say that I am?" You see, you've been following me for 3.5 years, or however long it's been. It's been years at this point when this transaction or this conversation takes place. So you've had a closer look. Who do you say that I am? And Peter says, most likely speaking for the group, "You're the Christ. You're the Son of the living God. You're the one we've been waiting on." And Jesus says, "Well, blessed are you, Simon, son of John, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I say also unto you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." The truthfulness of this statement, I'm going to build this church, this ecclesia, that was connected to the congregation of Israel in the Old Testament continually. When you look at the Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament, the ecclesia was used to describe the congregation of Israel. And so this divine community, this continuity that would exist and take place. And so he says, "I'm going to build my church. This place is going to be a divine community." And you see that, of course, picked up when you look at the book of Acts. You see it on grand display. You see its beginning and how it begins to grow and prosper and spread. And then when you look and interact with the letters, you see those things. But then Jesus makes a startling statement to the disciples, because after that, it says that he immediately began to show them that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the scribes and chief priests and be killed and be raised again on the third day. And Peter takes him to a side and begins to rebuke Jesus and says, "This is not going to happen to you." Now, most likely, Peter has in his mind a political Messiah. And when you look at certain things, you can kind of see where they drew that conclusion. And it certainly seems that's the conclusion that he has drawn. And so he's telling Jesus, that's not going to happen to you. And then Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan. You're savoring the thing." Now, Peter is not Satan incarnate, but it's almost like another temptation that took place in the wilderness in Matthew chapter 4. It's almost like another temptation that says, "No, you're not going to have to do this." But part of being the Son of God, part of building the church, is giving his life for humanity so that this divine community could be established. And then he turns it around and says, "And not only am I going to die, but if you want to follow me, if you want to be a part of this community, you've got to die to yourself." He said, "Look, if anyone comes to me and doesn't deny himself or take up his cross and follow me, then that individual cannot serve me." So not only is being part of the divine community, it's created because of who I am and the sacrifice I'm going to make to put together this group of redeemed people in this new community. But this new community is going to be filled with people who follow my lead, who do exactly what I do, who love unconditionally, and who sacrifice completely for the good of others. And isn't that a perfect illustration, one of many, of who Jesus is, who loves unconditionally and sacrifices completely? Paul put it this way in 2 Corinthians 8 and verse 9, you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, that you through his poverty might become rich. Thinking about his time in heaven, though he was rich, talking about before the incarnation in heaven, yet for our sakes he became poor. That is, he came to earth in the incarnation, and not just in the incarnation, but also lived as a peasant carpenter. The idea behind the word translated poor is being wholly dependent upon others for your sustenance and for your life. Even in his ministry, his preaching, itinerant preaching ministry, he was supported by other people. Why do all that? So that we, through his poverty, going down even further, as Paul would put it in Philippians 2, even the death on the cross, we, through his poverty, might become rich. So when we think about why we love Jesus, well, look at the sacrifice that he made for us, and look at the way that he has paved for us, and he expects us to live the way that he lived. And he's given us this wonderful community to help each other.